The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
I got my coffee. And I have a new coffee cup warmer, so I can put my coffee on it and it stays warm the entire time. There we go.
That seems like a good investment for these podcast recordings.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just going through because I've had 2 weeks off.
Yep.
Allison gave me a 2-week vacation. So I'm just trying to reacquaint myself with Sweetie. And I'm very happy today because we have 5 pieces of correspondence.
Yeah, and we have pieces of correspondence. I also like that we have, first of all, one of them is not from Sweetie. And then we also get her sending it to different people. So we can see how she writes things to the different individuals in the story. I love that about this, the different tone that she strikes. And we get to learn more about another individual who's the newest character to the story. Love that. We'll leave that for the content of this episode. But if anybody missed some of the recent episodes, just to catch everyone up as to where we are here in the end portion of season 2. We're in 1950. The Korean War has started. Rewind. This, I would say that if you're looking for a place to start, if you're just picking up on the Love Sweetie podcast now and you're saying, okay, what's like the start of like this act of like, if the season is like a 3-act play, where's the beginning of the 3rd act? You want to go back to episode 81. That's the beginning of the Korean War. That episode, I suppose you heard Brother Truman, highly recommends you can get your bearings because we're going to continue talking about the Korean War. It will not be forgotten on this podcast. So to get your bearings, really recommend that. Then in episode 83, called Little Marguerite, we had the birth of Sweetie's husband's Lew's, his sister Elizabeth's second child, Little Marguerite. And so that's going to be referenced in this episode today. So we have also that new individual coming into the storyline. And right now we find ourselves at the beginning and midpoint of September of 1950. This is the last months, of course, heading before we get into 1951, which, Jamie, is just kind of shocking to me that we're near the end of 1950 storyline. There is a lot to come. I have to say, like, sometimes you watch a movie in the second half, you're like, I don't know, the first half was like the powerhouse, and then it just was like, oh, peters out to the end. This is not the case in season 2. This is action-packed pretty much all the way through to the end of the season. There are so many more updates to come. So I guess in the longest way of saying, with a bit of rambling here, welcome everyone. If you're new to the story, make sure you go back to episode 81, pick up there, and come through and come back to this episode, because you're going to want all that context for what we're going to be speaking about today. That being said, a little bit of housekeeping as usual. If you could please like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast. If you're a returning listener and have not already done so, you want to do that. It really supports the channel, and it's a free thing. It's a free thing that helps us, so we appreciate that. If you're new, if you do that as well, great. I know I noticed that we had a couple new subscribers, Jamie, to the channel. Welcome to those new subscribers. Thank you for your support. On the audio podcast side, I've also been seeing some newer locations from where people listen in. It's always fun to me when like a new state like appears. I'm like, ooh, we have someone from that state listening now. On the audio channels, you guys know what to do on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the others. Follow however you follow podcasts. We'd love if you follow the Love Sweetie podcast there. Leave a review if you can. And of course, check out our website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. I guess we'll just dive right into that first piece of content there. We'll pick up the storyline here in early September of 1950. Dear Glen, I thought sure when you started sending me little notes that the mail would keep coming. And here I am without any mail. Ain't you shamed? Can't you just see me sending my little boy out every morning when I hear the mailman stop at my neighbor's mailbox? She gets mail, and my poor little boy comes in each and every morning, says, "Nope, no mail today," and goes back to catching Japanese beetles. Poor us! I can just see the guinea hen having the retching fits over the turtle making off with your day's catch. And I often remember with pleasure your catching the big one of the day when I went to the pond with you. Don't you wish you could come and go fishing with us at the ocean? We haven't been this year at all, and with our finances at lowest zero, it doesn't look like we'd make it down for even a day. Lew promised me once to take me crabbing. I'm not sure even at this late date whether he meant fishing or just more of my daily harangue. Haven't had much mail, and I sure do feel like somebody's orphan. I wrote in one of the family letters about Lew doing some refinishing for an antique dealer. You probably read or heard of it by now. He finished that big bonnet top highboy this afternoon, all but the legs, and we had to ask the neighbor boy to come and help us carry it out of the cellar. He and I carried it down, and I'm still wearing my battle scars that have turned a purple on the outside, and the most amazing color of chartreuse on the inside. There was no wage or pay set for the work, and while I liked the man, I sort of looked to get the small end of the horn. Or, as you so aptly put it, we'll end up with just plain crow. Lew maintains that the goodwill will be worth it if we do ever get into the business as we'd like to do in the somewhat distant and uncertain future. Most every letter I get from Jeanne, who am I kidding? I should say either one of the two she's written so far. I've been expecting her to say you've gone and enlisted, and I surely do dread it. Our best man is leaving here on September 1st. No, that isn't right. He is to report to this station on September 1st for further transfer to Washington State. His wife got a letter saying there would be a place for wives. Not government housing as I understood it, but places suitable for them to live, and that they were even chartering a transport to fly the wives out to Washington. I didn't experience such a considerate navy during the last war, though I surely do not begrudge it to her. She is leaving her little boy with her mother in Iowa. He does know her, but hasn't spent enough time with her to feel very much at home, and I fear she is making a mistake to leave him in such unfamiliar surroundings. I'm of the old school of taking the kid along, just to keep him with you. My young'un has come up to see what kind of mischief he can get into, and already it is plenty, so I shall call a halt now and write at some other time. Should you be able to express an opinion to her lordship, suggest that she write, or I'm going to hide her Shirley Temple doll. Sincerely, Sweetie.
It's a little odd that she said sincerely, Sweetie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so
Yeah.
used to love. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think that does speak to the kind of relationship that she's forging with him, that she doesn't feel
Yep.
like yet that they're at that place, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said before, she does have a tendency to start and end her letters based on her tone and her mood of the
Yep.
time and like how she's feeling. And she was obviously
Mm-hmm.
joking around with him and
Right.
is developing a friendship with him, which is really great to see because it seems that he is really kind of working his way into the family.
Yep, he definitely is. And as we read more of the letters for this episode, we're going to get even more content about Glen, which I just love. For the longest time we kept hearing about Cliffy for like 2
Yes.
years there. And then just Cliffy like evaporates out of the storyline. And now it's just Glen is here, but it looks like they're going to be, is there like maybe a slight besties relationship going on here? Something's going on here.
Maybe.
So we know Jeanne has a really great relationship with Lew. And I would think that Sweetie would hope that whoever Jeanne wound up with, she could build a similar relationship with that individual. We see that effort in this letter. Also, this one was undated, and originally Jamie knows this, but for our audience, I was going to put this later in this episode, but it occurred to me we've got a couple big elements here. She mentions that Joe Rusky is to report to Washington State on September 1st. So this letter actually dates this letter a little earlier. We also hear about the fishing trip that was referenced in a previous letter, and the highboy. the refinishing going on, where they had stopped by after an auction and Lew had volunteered to assist this antique dealer with some of the work that he was doing. All these elements tell us this is from the extreme beginning of September. Maybe it got sent out later, or it's from the end of August of 1950. So it pretty much just closes out some of those storylines. But I did want to talk a moment, Jamie, about the best man. And when I first read this letter, sometimes when I would break up my transcriptions of these letters that I was going through, I was doing so much of it that I'd like forget what storyline we were on.
Yeah.
And when it's like the best man, like it could just be a nickname for like, oh, there's like best man. No, it's like the best man.
The
Like
best
Luke's
man.
best man.
Yeah.
So Joe Rusky. So to recap for our listeners that potentially missed it, Joe Rusky's been called into active service, and they're the parallel storyline. His wife is from Ottumwa, Iowa. That's Olive, who's being referenced here, and their little son. And so she had been in Ottumwa on vacation visiting her family. Clearly, she has now returned back towards Pennsylvania, and so they're all going to head to Washington State, which seems like a pretty good spot to get on carriers and things and go across that ocean at the narrowest point to head over to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the likelihood that they're
and I
sensing
have
there.
to echo Sweetie's concerns about leaving a little boy.
Yep.
I think it's just much better to have your kids with you. And I understand she was going into a situation, probably, she was unfamiliar in what was going to be happening. And yeah, like they were taking the effort to like get the wives out to Washington as well, and like so that they have their wives with them. And I think it would be just better for her to have her child. But also this is like and this isn't their first war. This is another one. Having to deal with that, you don't know what's going on. And that actually kind of just breaks my heart to like hear about this kind of stuff. Because that was another family that Sweetie and Lew spent quality time with, and then the boys probably, were able to play and stuff together. It was like very, it's disheartening.
Yeah.
And two, we see that she's joking with Glen. Like they're joking around and they're joking about Jeanne, her lordship. Oh, that makes me laugh. That makes me laugh. That's the funnest stuff. And like, so she's got a great, even though she does kind of try to make him feel bad about my poor, that like little Lewis going out. No mail. Oh no. Oh, she's trying to make Glen feel bad. This was a nice, kind of like a nice way to get back into letters with you. That's the good one. But and then the second one, we're going to hear from somebody we don't hear from very often either.
Thursday, September 14th, 1950. Dear Jeanne, left home at 11:05 p.m. and arrived here at 8:30 after a few naps and cups of coffee. 319 miles made the trip without incident. Sort of tired to begin the day. Because of some sick patients, nearly gave up the trip at the last hours. Expect Uncle Cyril at the post office Friday morning at 10 o'clock. On to Frank's tomorrow evening. Hope you have fun. We'll be up for when we get back. Be good. Love, Mama.
Be good.
Be good.
You be good, Jeanne.
Yep.
So Laura. So they took a trip. We know that Dr. Chester and Laura bought a new car.
Yep.
So it looks like they're getting ready to take it out. And it looks like they're heading to Chicago.
Yep. I
was confused as to why they left at 11. They had patients that they probably had to tend to before. They probably were not planning on leaving at 11:05 at night.
Yep.
I wouldn't.
I'm thinking like Dr. Demaree is just in the middle of the night tearing up the road in this new car, and he tends to get in trouble. So of course she has to say it was without incident to Jeanne, because the earliest stuff we heard was earlier in the year. There was all the towing going on with the flat toe, with the patient.
What was that? Flat toe. That's what that was called, a flat toe. I saw that in Tennessee when I was just recently in Tennessee, and I was like, and somebody was doing it, and I'm like, that's called something. What's that called? It's a flat toe.
Flat toe. Yeah. So none of that, just some coffee and getting out there. Now, I will say to our listeners, This card's interesting, and this one threw me off in the collection a little bit because we have a postmark on this card of September 14th. However, the next letter we're going to hear is from September 11th. And I did just want to clarify this for our listeners, the change in the date here. I suspect this was sent in the mail late because otherwise the timeline doesn't work from the content that we're going to hear. So if people were wondering about that, hey, sometimes that happened. Remember how Sweetie said, oh, I wrote like a card to Dr. Demaree, but I forgot to send it? So every now and then we get these little disconnects at time. But the important thing is Chester and Laura went to go visit Frank and the family over there in Chicago and did this long drive in their nice new car. So, yeah. But speaking of September 11th, this is our biggest letter of the episode. It's broken into 2 parts. This is the first part, and I think our listeners are really going to enjoy in this first part an update on some more activities in daily life of Sweetie and the family there in Hatboro.
County Line Road, Hatboro, Pennsylvania, September 11th, 1950. Dear Mama, Papa, Jeanne, Sister, Florence, and Franks. This is a cloudy, dismal day. We're having something of a northeaster these days, and I've accomplished little in the way of work, but shall try to make up for it by getting a few letters written. Besides, I've cleaned out my desk a little and have come across some bulletins that I should have returned to Sister long ago, and shall hasten, even at this late date, to get them sent to her. You're enjoying much longer telecasting hours now, aren't you? And don't you find the programs are getting steadily better, with a greater variety? Haven't heard from any of you except for Papa's card saying they were leaving for Iowa from Frank's. I assume that everything is all right with all of you. I would like to hear about the trip, and how well you like the car. All our activity seems to center around the various sales of household goods and the auction sales. I cannot go into detail about everything, but we do manage to pick up a few bargains. We invited our dealer friend to come up and see our few things, and they were quite surprised, and we were exceptionally pleased when they offered to buy some of our things at 2 or 3 times the price we paid for them. They suggested we put out a sign and start selling some of them. The trouble with us is that we are so pleased we have a hard time selling them. I must get our records in order so that we know what we paid for each thing and what profit we make when we resell. Have been getting a pretty good education in furniture, too, from it, and would like to tell you of the last sale we attended. A little old woman was selling out her furniture and had sold her house. We found some real nice pieces of furniture and thought how we wished we could be fortunate enough to get a couple of pieces: ladder-back chairs, Chippendale chairs, an old blanket chest, a drop-leaf table, a tilt-top table, a highboy, and an old grandfather clock. One Chippendale chair sold for $145, and the rest of the things were right in that price range. One cupboard went for $345. The grandfather's clock went for $135. So did the blanket chest. The highboy and the drop-leaf table brought $150. We just drooled and were careful not to stand too close to the furniture while we did it. We did buy some wedding band glassware, 10 stemmed goblets at 20 cents apiece, 5 wedding band tumblers for 5 cents apiece, and an old sampler dated 1812 for $2. We came home and found an ad in the Antiques magazine for any old dated samplers with the maker's name, which this one had, and so I wrote a letter to the collector, offering to sell this one. It is possible that we might make a good profit on it, though, of course, they may consider it too plain, as it is largely a repeat of alphabets and different sizes of lettering and script. But the fact that it is dated and has a name might make it worth something to a collector. I hope. Several people came up and asked if they might look at the sampler and the glassware after we bought it, and some of them asked where they had been when it went for that price. Both Lew and I are sure we can resell it for a good gain. We bought a bunch of junk, 3 chairs at 15 cents apiece, and just a conglomeration of what they wanted to get rid of, for not more than $3, and resold it all for $7.40 at our local auction sale. I like the profit, but I'm beginning to feel like a first-class junker. Remember how Sister made such fun of me for saying that we had lots of little odds and ends that Lew had found at the dump? Well, the last acquisition from the dump was a real nice little spinning wheel. Can you imagine throwing something like that into the dump? The tile that Lew picked up from there are worth $10 apiece, according to their English manufacturer. We wrote and asked them to give us the history of them. It seems as though we are kept busy following the sales. We asked to be put on the mailing list of one of the better auctioneers. They are having lots of sales this week, and I expect that Lew will commission me to go to them alone. I rather enjoy it, and shall like trying it on my own at least this once. The trouble is that the moneyed dealers or the wealthy collectors follow them pretty closely too, and between them, they squeeze us poor fellows out. I have high hopes for this sampler we bought, and shall be very disappointed if we don't make out on it. We are buying out some furniture from a man who is moving his family to California. None of it is worth very much, but we hope to make a profit by taking it to this local auction sale. It will be a good experience for us, and I shall write and tell you all about it.
They are really getting into these auctions.
Yep.
And I do appreciate that she's like, I'm a junker, like, but you have to start somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. But I do like though that she doesn't like that. She wants to do more. She has this internal fire. She's already talking about like calculating what kind of profits they're making. It just is a precursor, isn't it?
Yeah, we see so many signs of things that are to come. And here's the thing that I really appreciate about this as well. Just because they can't afford it doesn't mean that they're not doing their work and their research, because they go to this one sale that they managed to get this this set of the glassware and things that some of the people who were probably so obsessed with all the big items missed some of the smaller items. They're like, when did that go through? It must have been a really big auction, and they just managed to slip in there and get that. But they're also studying the things they can't get. And the other thing is they're doing all their research, like with the tile that he found. He wrote to the English manufacturer to find out what they're worth. I mean, this is before the days of the internet. The amount of time that they're spending to really understand what is good and what is junk is a lot of work, but they're putting in the work, and there's going to be a huge payoff that is going to come from all of this. And the other thing is they're in like a really good place to be doing this, because we're talking about the 1950s. We have to remember this is before the bicentennial of the country by at least 25 years. And they're in the suburbs surrounding Philadelphia. So when they're talking about things like the Chippendales, and they're talking about things like especially ladderback chairs, these might be items that they might not have seen as frequently out in the Midwest. But in this area, it's somewhat plentiful.
What is important? Like when I was growing up, old cars, because the gentlemen who were, like in their teens and they wanted a cool car, they got them when they were in their 50s, so that was the important thing. Now you can go out and buy one for nothing. Like, like the prices have come down because the interest and the obsession has also waned. So I love that. You're right. It's the 1950s. They're starting to get in there. They're also starting to recognize they're making friends with dealers. They probably recognize different auctioneers. They're starting to break into this world, to this industry, to the auctions, and to the people who are, so they're becoming people who are also going to be known. Like we know Lew and Sweetie.
Reputation is they know good value. They might sell junk, but every now and then when they buy things, they tend, like even the other dealers are going to notice that. These guys seem to tell what's right and what's not, nonsense to be picking up. That's so hard today. It's hard to tell, but people can look stuff up on their phone. These guys, they just know. And that's sending a message. And then we get the mention of the Antiques magazine. And let me just tell you, Jamie, if we don't have hundreds of these magazines in the basement, like, I've been trying to figure out what to do with all of these Antiques magazines, but that's their reference point. They're also getting the literature of the time.
We should get some of those. We should get some of those magazines and go through them.
Dad's going to be upset. He's going to be like, oh, here we go. Because they've got them bound up. Like literally, they've been preserved. They're bound up in paper with like twine has been wrapped around them. There's stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of Antiques magazines. And I'm sure they're the ones being referenced in this letter. They kept all of them because for them, no internet, that's the reference material they have for the entire industry, which they are very clearly barreling into.
Yeah, this is an interesting break. This is an interesting turn. We know, of course, where they've gone in their lives and stuff. So, but it's really cool to see the beginning of these interests. So, but that was our first half. And then the second half, we're going to take a little turn and turn more inward into family and what's going on with the family.
Aunt Betty is just now making her first trip downstairs. She had at least 3, if not 4, pretty severe hemorrhages after her return from the hospital, and poor G-Mom is just about at the end of her row. I believe I wrote you that Marguerite and I pitched in to do the laundry and cleaning for her while we were there overnight. We have been down once more since then, and she looked tired and worn out. I've been pushing the idea of getting a colored woman in 1 day a week, since it is hard on G-Mom, and Betty seems to leave the largest part of the work to her even under ordinary condition. They could well afford to do it, and it would surely save G-Mom a lot if they did. Marguerite's mother is making regular visits to her cancer clinic, and they seem to be giving her much encouragement, though the incision in her throat, where they removed the gland, has never yet healed, and remains open and draining. I believe Marguerite has gotten the idea that she will eventually find it somewhere else in her body, and so I have not said much to her about it, and would dread to tell her anyway. It seems too bad to let her get the idea that her mother will recover, and then run up against its recurrence, and yet I'd hate to tell her that it would happen, and have her brooding and worrying about her mother here in New York, while her mother's in Texas. Joe has been getting some pretty good parts in television and some short work in the movies in New York. They do pay well while they are working, but the long wait in between jobs are hard for them to get through. Marguerite is in the process of having those enormous plantar's warts removed by X-ray. They only give the X-ray treatments at week or 2 week intervals. I forget which. And she says they still continue to hurt her most of the time. I wonder if they will ever get them killed out. I've never seen them as big as these are, and I surely do feel worry for her too. She is doing mostly sit-down work now, where she used to be on her feet all the time, and that is a big help. It is getting late, and so I shall stop now. I've been meaning to tell you that the package from Mama arrived safely. Louis was delighted and had forgotten he owned the shirt, and was thoroughly delighted, said, "It was nice of Grandma Demaree to send me these things," and I didn't tell him we had forgotten the shirt when we visited you. I'll write again in a day or 2, but would like to hear from somebody out there just to know that everything is all right with all of you. Love to all. Sweetie.
I have to remind myself that Elizabeth is also Dit, is also Betty, is also Aunt Betty.
Right. Yeah, all the story. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because I say to the kids, your aunt, your uncle, like referring to my brother, sisters. But yeah, you call them typically what the kids call them.
Yeah. I can't really say Aunt Dit too easy. You don't want to give that clue to little Louis, like So,
no,
he always knew that
Dit is Jekyll.
Yeah,
Dit is Jekyll. Dit's like Elizabeth's Louis' sister, Elizabeth. We have to keep all this straight. It's good to know that she's doing okay, but it's also she's clearly taking advantage of her mother. And poor Margaret, and I'm so glad that Marguerite and Lou and Joe and Sweetie all went down there and were able to kind of like help her out and clean up things for her. But yeah, she's clearly taking advantage of her mother. And then poor Marguerite, her mother, her maternal, like her mom in Texas is still dealing with that cancer, and then she has her other mother who's like obviously very tired, dealing with having a newborn, and Dit is Aunt Betty. She's she's not doing good. So
I don't like her taking advantage of Sydney. Actually, I think one of our listeners commented on this in the podcast that's like, "Hey Elizabeth, like what are you doing here?" That is exactly the sentiment that I have here. Now Sweetie has this idea in her head, and she's just like, you know what? I think just she needs to get some help. Sydney's 70, and she's like, why? Like Sydney shouldn't be the maid. Like that's not a thing. This is taking advantage. So she says, why don't you hire some help? To come in and assist with, of course, the language of the time, which is what it is. So
it is that is what it is. That's how things were.
I think the other thing is like Joe's getting some more television roles and things like that. I love that. I want to say that when she's like, well, there's kind of a gap between work. I want to be like, that's Hollywood, baby. Like, but he's not Hollywood.
You
He's
should have.
he's in New
Honestly,
York.
Allison, you should
Yeah.
have been like, that's Hollywood, baby. And just said it real
Yeah,
quick.
right there. Yeah. Yeah, but it's also New York, and then my mind actually goes to the musical Annie, where there's like that NYC song. So I encourage people go listen to that song. That's a great one where it just describes like the ups and downs of everything. But he's in the middle. He's in showbiz. So-
He's in showbiz. And then her poor,
Mhm.
she talked about her poor planner sports. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like
For Marguerite.
poor
Yeah.
Marguerite.
Mhm.
That's awful.
Yeah.
But oh
Mhm.
man, I just gotta real quick. This
Mhm.
coffee cup warmer is the best thing I've ever bought.
That is a vote of confidence in that. Maybe Jamie, you'll have to send me the information about. We'll put it in the description and say like, not a sponsor of the podcast, but who knows?
Oh no, you know what? You need a coffee cup warmer. I'm on a
I
mission.
should get a coffee cup warmer.
No, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get you a coffee cup warmer. I'm gonna get you one.
All right.
So, but that was a great letter. We kind of get to know, like, got it a little update on the things and like what they're
Mhm.
doing, and that's exciting. And it's like September.
Yeah.
We haven't hit the holiday season yet, which is nice. So she's just kind of
Yeah.
like a nice chill. She's not getting any letters though. People are
No,
busy.
she's not happy about this. No.
She's not happy about this. That was the third one out of our 5 letters today. So now we're gonna hear another one to Glen.
Dear Glen, well, old bean, I do hope that you can take a tolerant view of my neglect in writing the little notes in the letters I haven't been writing to Jeanne. Doggone, I can't seem to find time to do anything anymore, and letter writing has always been one of the worst of my failings. And believe me, I have many and bad ones too.
Time out. Okay. I'm going to just like, she thinks she's bad at writing letters, and I'm pretty sure her letters put literally everybody in the world to shame, considering the collection and what this is going to be. So, inferiority complex completely misplaced with regards to writing letters. But I'm just going to call that one out. We could all do better to write more to our friends and family at the level that she's writing. So, I don't know who she's comparing herself to. I just don't know.
What is her basis for comparison?
Truman? Like, who are you talking about?
I shall now try to ease myself out of social disgrace and renew my status on your mailing list. Antique hunting is a very tiresome business and is so often unrewarding and discouraging too. We took ourselves downtown to a big auction house to a sale of antiques that were truly the most beautiful and authentic display I've ever seen, and got a very good education in them, as well as their prices. One chair went for $410 and a desk for $1,975. Lew once in a while would put his hand up to bid on something that went at a fantastic price, just to see what it felt like, and careful enough that he could not be caught and stuck with a beautiful antique at a horrible price. Have decided our best bet, as far as prices are concerned, is to confine ourselves to local auctions, where once in a while we can stumble onto something good, at a fairly reasonable price. Though we're getting to the place where anything over $1 is a major expenditure. Jeanne and Papa both wrote about your going down to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig for the garage Papa is building. I've got to thank you and tell you how everlastingly grateful I'll be to you for going down to help him out and keep him from jumping into the job with all 4 feet and doing too much work. I'd considered writing Bill and offering to pay him something for a Sunday or 2 down there helping, but hated to write and ask him to go, for Bill can make me feel as though I was imposing, and besides I didn't have much to offer him as wages, and I had been worrying about Papa doing several days' work in one day. So I'm grateful to you and to Jeanne for doing what you have done to keep him from doing too much, but you, like Bill, won't be able to get much pay from me right now, except in thanks and appreciation. On my part, Jeanne's and Papa's too, though he might not express his thanks very profusely, he did appreciate it, and wrote to tell me about it. Guess you and Jeanne have been doing some plain and fancy stepping, as my mailbox remains empty, and collecting dust and advertisements only. I did enjoy hearing about the fishing trip you made up north, and am anxious to hear Jeanne's plans for her vacation over Christmas. I just wrote her and have come across the card she wrote me last, saying the vacation came over Christmas. I wonder how you figure in these vacation plans, and ask that you write and tell me what plans they may be. Have no doubt the union and the fez heads are keeping you busy and entertained as well, and often wish I could get in on some of the discussions. You have my permission to blast Mr. Benton at your pleasure, and any other of the bigwigs who may deserve it. Pour it on, pour it on. But write and tell me all about it. My sadistic tendencies are in need of nourishment.
Okay, Chester.
I can't help but notice that in most all the letters and cards we get from you, that you say Jeanne still hasn't asked you yet, assuming you mean she hasn't set any date. I am compelled to ask you, have you asked her lately? I can see where you'd like some encouragement from her, but let me remind you that every gal likes to be constantly pursued and persuaded, and so I feel it necessary to give you a push in the right direction, too. And the next letter I get from you, don't tell me she hasn't asked you yet, but tell me what you've done about the situation yourself. I must stop if I'm to write the usual family carbon-copied letter, and if I don't, I'll be ostracized for sure. Write us a note and urge Miss Astor to do likewise. My mailbox door is getting rusty, and will soon not work at all, I fear. Thanks again for helping Papa dig the garage footings or flooring. And write. Sincerely, there.
So what does that mean, Allison?
I get the sense that the sincerely there, the only thing I can think of signing it that way is like, so there. Like, that's the only thing I can think that's supposed to be, is like, I've proved my point. Man, there's just so much going on in this letter. I wish we did have like the proper date on it, but there's so many references to things and pieces that like we get a good idea of when it's from. I think we can work our way backwards in this letter. Jeanne hasn't set a date. Well, I wonder what that implies.
So this, honestly, to me, they're engaged.
Yeah.
They are betrothed. Right. They are committed. So they're definitely going to be getting married.
Yeah.
Which is really, really great. But we don't see, I don't like to jump into these things. I prefer to be certain about stuff. But what this sounds like to me is that there's going to be a wedding.
Just maybe. The path to this is going to be very different from some. I'm just going to leave that teaser out there. As I said, there's a lot of things to happen at the end of season 2. The path to this is going to be a little different from the Sweetie meets Lew gets married 4 months later. This is going to be a little different. Jeanne is making the decisions for herself about what she wants to do. I'm going to give one piece of information about Glen that we haven't talked about yet. Glen, because it's not really mentioned in the letters, but it's important to know, he has been married before. Glen is divorced, actually, at this point in time. And he has 2 children through his previous marriage. So that's also just something to know about Glen going in. So there's like that element to this relationship as well that, Jeanne's going to be figuring out, how she wants that family home life to be. But Jeanne is very much in charge. Her lordship, Miss Astor, is the one that's going to determine how this is going to go. And Jeanne is a good personality to be in charge. I love that she's like, well, you haven't been writing, because how did they say with the dancing? I love their reference to how it's dancing that they're describing here. I'm going to get it real quick. Guess you and Jeanne have been doing some plain and fancy stepping, a.k.a. they've been out dancing, having a good time. So they haven't had time for things. And then, of course, we noticed that, Chester's a Mason, and we've always had like these Mason connections. Glen's in some societies too, it seems. When we talk about the Union, I'm pretty sure that's the Union League. So we get that. And then he references the Shriners organization. So he's part of some of these sort of fraternal organizations and things out there, which is going to fit in nicely with the fact that Chester's really involved with fraternal organizations. And then Chester had tried to get Frank and Bob involved in the fraternal organizations. So we'll see. But clearly, Glen's a member of at least a couple of them in reference here. Rewinding a little further back in the letter as we keep working our way back.
Yeah, speaking of Chester, he's out there. He's out there, and we know he was digging a garage. He'd been doing it. It was a few episodes ago we heard from him. He had moved some dirt to different parts of the yard, and he had done it from a place where he was digging for the garage. So, and we know that Chester had a heart attack, and that Sweetie is very concerned about him. So, but Glen was out there doing a lot of the manual labor for this garage too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I bet Chester really likes him.
Yeah, and the other thing I can say about Glen, because Sweetie never really gives us a description because she knows what he looks like. Glen is very much athletic. He's a big guy, and he was very involved to the point of with sports, that he did very well with sports, actually. So this fisherman, this dancer that's very active, he has a lot of strength. So she's very grateful. And we know that Bill helped with the schoolhouse when they were fixing the roof. The last thing she needs is that. But then we get this little sense about Bill, he doesn't like to be inconvenienced a little bit. Jeanne and Glen, Jeanne knows, she's like, my dad is not going to have another heart attack. Sweetie, how does she say it? I don't want all 4 of his feet digging this garage. So we're very much firmly in the garage saga. We don't have to talk too much more about what happens with the garage and the building of the garage in Lacona, because, guys, we're going to let Chester do that for himself. Teaser for episode 86. Trust me when I say the information about the garage, as mundane as it would seem a storyline out there in the world, this has to be the most epic retelling of the building of a garage we will get, that I've ever heard or probably will ever hear in my life. That's coming in episode 86, and I'm just going to leave it there. So, some stuff happened. Let's just leave it at that. When in the building of this garage, but Glen's helping dig and dig and dig. I think there were 5 digs there as she's making her dig at Chester.
You rewind a little bit further.
Yep.
We are learning that they went to a big auction sale, somewhere downtown. This was something that this was kind of out of their comfort zone.
Yep.
So, but they were able to see and get more education on what the kind of the prices are, where things were sitting. So this was very good for them. This was very good. Not that they did anything, because holy crap,
expensive.
The desk for
Philadelphia.
Oh my god, $1,975. So that'd be $1 billion today, right? Something like that. You want to get
inflation's not that bad, Jamie, but we do know that as we're speaking, what is it? I love for people who have never heard his name, I love Spike Cohen, what he always said about inflation. He says, as I'm speaking with you, infinitesimally amount, there's a small amount in which the dollar is continuing to lose power. It's devaluing itself as we're talking in tiny amounts, right? So yeah, everybody, let's think about that. But we're not at $1,900 billion. Yeah,
he said, everybody, let's think about that.
Maybe next year. Let's see what happens. When we head to this, I love this one phrase though. I find this to be so endearing. Lew once in a while would put his hand up to bid on something that went at a fantastic price, just to see what it felt like.
They probably were sitting there.
Is it safe? Let's go for this one.
Ooh. They're like, I want that.
Yeah, the other dealers are probably like, what? I wonder if it was on the desk, if that's part of driving that up to nearly $2,000.
And again, if he was doing that on occasion, people were noticing. Yeah. This is them breaking into this world. This is them making their presence known. I love it. Yeah. And I wonder, sometimes I wonder if they brought Lewis with them, but
I think they did. Who else is babysitting? He could go to the Rieselmans, probably. She has the new baby. They probably could go to the neighbor. Certainly can't go to Ditz. Sydney's had it. You think you're not going to do that. So he's probably there. Yeah.
He's probably there with them, hanging out and doing stuff. And then that would be different too. They have a kid with them. So, so this is cool. We're seeing them get into this, and things that, this isn't them going out on dates to go dancing. This is them going auctioning, this is how they spend their time. All right. So we do have one more, and this is again from Sweetie. Aw, yay.
County Line Road, Hatboro, Pennsylvania, September 15th, 1950. Dear Mama, Papa, Jeanne, Frank, Sister, and Florence. I received a letter from Jeanne yesterday and was surely surprised to hear that our little Susie had to have a cardiograph. Won't somebody write the details? How could you so casually mention that without details? Just makes me more than half mad. I got a card from the folks saying they were leaving for Iowa from Frank's, but never have heard that they arrived home, aside from Jean's mention of the cardiograph. I assume always that everything is all right, but there may be a time when my optimism is misdirected. Glen sent me a note along with Jean's letter, and I really got as much information from his as I did from hers. I did enjoy hearing about the fishing episode, and was laughing at Chris's enthusiasm almost as much as if I'd been there myself. Did Sir Turtle just stay at the pond, or did you bring it home and dress it? We have a son this morning, for the first time in about 6 days, if I remember right. We have supposedly been having the tail-end effects of the Atlantic hurricane, but I can't think it was all that. Anyway, it is nice to see the sun again, and as soon as the ground dried out a bit underfoot, I shall tackle this immense washing that has piled up for 2 weeks or more. Did I write you that we had been to a sale and bought a sampler dated 1812? I am almost sure I did write you about it. I've written to a woman who collects samplers and am trying to sell it. For a sizable profit, of course. We are going this weekend to start hauling the furniture we bought from the family moving to California, and shall write you how well we make out on it. I do know that out of it I'm going to keep at least one innerspring mattress for Lewis's single bed, and may keep the second one to lay on the floor for visitors, since we would have to have them fumigated, and that would cut down on the profit. Lewis's mattress is a disgrace to any white people, and so I shall be glad to have it. May sell one to the neighbor across the way, too. There are 4 single beds in the outfit, and we don't know until we look it over pretty carefully just what we will do about keeping or selling. Sure do hope that we can make something from it. Along with the stuff is a 1933 Packard pickup. Was a car, but they made it into a truck. Don't think we'll keep that, as it is too big, costs too much to run, and the license costs too much. We have high hopes for making something out of it. Elizabeth is up now, and both she and the baby seem to be doing very nicely after their first troubles are over. G-Mom is quite tired of it all, and will deserve a good rest once Elizabeth takes over. I had occasion to be in a drugstore to use a phone, and while awaiting my turn came across some cards that I thought Mama might like to use, and so I shall include them with this letter if I can. It is nearly mail time, and so I shall stop here and write again the first of the week. Write, and tell me how everyone is. Mama, can't you take time to write me? And sister, you could send me lots of news that you get, even if it is second-hand. Jeanne, she writes so seldom she can't remember what she has written and what she hasn't, so she just assumes she has written it all and doesn't write anything very often. Maida, won't you write me about Susie and your other 2 kidlets? And Florence, write and tell me if you passed your exam, won't you? You could keep us well entertained at writing about your 2 kids. Love, Sweetie. This last carbon paper was fine, but it is getting pretty worn. Will Iowa Pack donate more for the cause?
Thank you, public service announcement to Iowa Pack. I've been trying to find more information on Iowa Pack in the 50s for donating to the cause of all these letters that Sweetie sends to one of your former employees.
That's funny. I like how she says that. And, that's clear of like how they ask for things back then, because, like
Yeah.
a few episodes ago, we were talking about one of their cousins had polio, and they were doing polio treatments, and they were raising for March of Dimes, I believe it was.
March of Dimes, yeah.
March of Dimes. And they were raising, so will you donate to the cause? Will you donate to the cause? It's kind of like the vernacular of the day. Let's see what else. Oh, this was the one. Speaking of the weather, I was talking to my brother-in-law a long time ago, and he was like, yeah, in Pennsylvania, we actually we get like 100 days of sun. Like there's more clouds and stuff than sunny days here. And you don't really kind of notice it until like you're like, oh, there's the sun. And then it's just a very, very kind of like not dreary, not like Seattle rain all the time, Pacific Northwest kind of thing. But it's still very kind of gloomy here.
Well, we've got a couple updates here. The most important part is that they're still, well, obviously other than the antiquing they're doing, and we're still hearing about Elizabeth. I wanted to call attention to one part. We don't see this in every single letter, but we've had it twice now, the language of the time, from the early letter, and we have it here in this letter. Obviously, this is the 1950s. Historically, I think it's important to draw the distinction between how people spoke back then and the inherent prejudices that existed in society at the time. We're going to see this in what's going on in society, because by the time we head into the 60s, it's the entire civil rights movement. She just gives this plainly awful line, where she compares basically a socioeconomic status to a race, and is clearly setting, the line's really awful. I don't think I really need to repeat it from what was in the letter. Everybody heard it. But there's an important thing to point out: the flaw that does exist in society for considering these things, but it is of its time. And this is a letter from the 1950s. So Sweetie is not immune to the thoughts and the prejudices of the time that were occurring. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. I don't know. So, but
yeah, this isn't something. These are. I prefer to be authentic, and this is a disclaimer that is at the beginning of every episode.
Yep.
So these are of the time, and I would rather look at things. People don't like to be uncomfortable,
right?
And if this makes you uncomfortable, that's understandable.
Yeah,
but also being being uncomfortable is also a indicative of growth. So I prefer, you should make yourself uncomfortable. You should be uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is a good way to stretch your perspective, and it's also a good way to it's good for people to have what I think, it's not referenced very often. I've only ever heard this term once: interpersonal knowledge. We really should be experts of ourselves and how we feel and where we stand. And so if this causes somebody a little discomfort, I understand, but know that growth will follow. So don't this isn't I know I think you have a deeper feeling about this. This is very superficial to me, because there's so much more meat in these letters, and there's so many other things that we could actually discuss that would bring us to a better place. And I do appreciate that you want to talk about this.
It's a tough subject, that's the thing. You said, it's growth as a society. This is a problem at the time of the 50s. It just is. There's a lack of understanding.
I don't think that, I think that you're yes, there's problems and the way that things are handled and stuff, but there's also problems currently. Okay.
Oh, for sure.
And I am way more invested in the current problems. This happened a very, very long time ago.
Yeah.
And I prefer honesty, brutal honesty. What was it? I prefer brutal honesty over comfortable lie. And see where we are at with those kind of things.
In the background of all this going on, of course, the information we got today was that Joe Ruski, was heading to Washington State. Something's going on in the Korean War. At the end of the last episode, we talked about the port of they said Busan back then. It's Busan now, Busan. I'm going to bring up I think it's good to bring up the map that we showed at the end of the last episode, just so everybody has that visual of what I'm talking about, because if you didn't listen on the last one, this could be a little tricky. So let's review the map. This was the map from the Philadelphia Inquirer, on the front page of that Philadelphia Inquirer on September 6th of 1950. This is so we can get our bearings. This is the position of the UN forces, largely comprised of the Americans. They're constantly going to be referred to as the UN forces, or they keep using the term the Yanks. This is where the Yanks are. So we always get the Yankees moving in. But you can notice, for people that missed it last time, if you look at the smaller map within the map that's listed here, we see a box around Busan. That's where the forces are. And we also see where Seoul is. Seoul is really close to that 38th parallel. The issue here is that the UN forces had been forced by the North Koreans all the way back to this point of the map. And of course, we see the larger picture here. And what I'd mentioned at the end of the last episode is we're heading into the Battle of Incheon, and as the counteroffensive begins, they have to get the capital back. That's really, really important. And so this is what happens in September. This is a somewhat brief update, but to give everybody this update because it's critical. In September, mid-September, the UN forces do push back into the rest of South Korea on the way to Seoul, and they push back, and they are going to fight the Battle of Incheon. That's the big one. And then by the end of September of 1950, the UN forces are going to successfully retake Seoul. So in the space of a month, which we were thinking maybe this would take a lot longer to fight all the way back up there, that's it. That's the weight of the forces moving in. And Jamie, what I had brought up for Jamie to see, and what I'd like our viewers to look at, is this is the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer on September 26, 1950. Now, the next episode of the Love Sweetie podcast will start with letters from October, so I thought it was important to talk about this at the end of this episode. Soul captured by the Yanks for our audio listeners. Philadelphia Inquirer, right across the front page, it says, "Great fires rage in the city as the Red defenders flee." And there's an image here that would have been on the newspaper there as Sweetie's going about and getting her breakfast that morning. First photo from the battle-scarred Soul, now in Allied hands. So on the 25th, Soul is retaken. On the 26th, this is the headline. But we also have a really great photo here. Wanted to bring this up. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and then bring up the picture, because we definitely need to see this. This is an image of North Korean POWs being captured as the UN troops retake Seoul in September of 1950. So we get an idea of the battering as well that Seoul's received from the attack. This is a image from the United States government. We could see clearly individuals surrendering to forces and tanks coming up the street. But we get an idea of the environment. There's just rubble everywhere, all across the road. They've managed to clear out the road there, but it also gives an idea of the elevation. We can see some ridges in the background there, some of the apartment buildings and things that look like tenement buildings in the back. And then the spot where Jamie, you were pointing out earlier when we were looking at this, where it seems like they carved out the road. There's some elevation elements to the city of Seoul. But yeah, that's basically the big news. And now the push is going to be for the UN forces to then seize on the opportunity, having retaken Seoul, to push into North Korea. This is war is very interesting. In that fighting a defensive war is one thing. Fighting an offensive campaign is extremely difficult. Once you head into the other party's territory. We're not there yet, but that's exactly what the idea is. After the retake of Seoul, it's like, okay, let's go into North Korea. And that's going to be the next wave of the Korean War, is going to be that push across the 38th parallel. And that remains to be seen. We'll discuss that when that gets there. But the important update, of course, for this episode is that Seoul is retaken. And I strongly encourage people to look into this particular history of that first portion of the war, that first Act 1, Scene 1, I'd say. Act 1, Scene 2, as we start heading into the counteroffensive, going across the line into North Korea. But yeah, that's about it for that.
Yeah, and I was just talking with Allison before we started recording that my family and I go to Tennessee every year, and we usually actually do make a trip to the Knife Works, which is the largest knife store in the world. If you are in Sevierville, Tennessee, go there. You will not be disappointed. You could spend hours. They have all kinds of things there. And my children actually spent a lot of time in the relic room, where there is all kinds of relics from World War II, the Civil War, which is Allison's favorite. And I was looking around for Korean War relics, and there was a small shelf, and it was this much. And so one of the gentlemen was there. His name's Jacob. I asked him, I was like, I need to know your name just in case. And he's like, I said, why is there not anything from the Korean War? And he brought up an excellent point, that World War II had ended 2 years prior. And so a lot of that was repurposed. A lot of the equipment and things were repurposed for this war. So it's kind of hard to tell what is a World War II relic versus what is a Korean War relic, and to make that distinction. And he also said too, then we know that the Vietnam War starts not too long after this.
Yeah,
so it's very easy to say this is from Vietnam, but there was just really not a lot of things. He did show me some stuff, and it was kind of cool. But yeah, we definitely have to spend more time with this war, and I really like this perspective, learning about the Korean War this way.
Yeah, as we sort of learn it in time, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in, and I keep looking for that seminal text, and I keep looking for more interviews, and it's just so spread out. That's the thing. It's so spread out everywhere. As we study the history, I think there's going to be more scholarship coming up on this, but it's a time to wait, unfortunately. And I'm glad we're tackling it. I'm glad that we're slowly telling that story as Sweetie's story unfolds here. But that is it for the episode today. Jamie, I'm really excited for next week's episode. We're gonna get to see another location. Actually, we're gonna change locations a little bit in next week's episode. Jamie knows what I'm talking about, so I strongly encourage for people to get there. And remember, episode 86 in 2 weeks. We're gonna conclude with the most epic story about the building of a garage you will ever hear in your life. I promise you, as Dr. Demaree tells us exactly, and is literally telling you exactly. I'm going to make the emphasis on you, everybody, as to what happened when he attempted to build this garage. We'll see if it works or not. But with that, thanks everybody for listening in today. Bye.